Hi everyone, and welcome to Skills Sorted. We're just waiting for Lucy Bronze to join us. For those of you who were with us last week, welcome back. And for anybody who is new, hello and welcome. I'm Rebecca Randell. I'm a scientist at the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. So let me just check. Yeah, Lucy's here. Oh, hey Lucy.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good. It's been a whole week since we chatted last.
Yeah, another busy week.
Oh, has it? So the episode last week was on fuel, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this week we'll be talking about hydration. Skills sorted, we play strong Gatorade, and we spoke about fuel last week. This week's hydration, we've still got recovery next week, and then the final week with menstruation. So let's talk about hydration. Rebecca, why is it important that we keep hydrated?
Lucy, it's really important to stay hydrated. Everybody has a different sweat rate. So if me and you were to do the same exercise, one of us might sweat more than the other. Probably me. I'm really sweaty. That's because we have loads of sweat glands like on our body. So we have to make sure that we replace the fluid that we lose to make sure that we don't become dehydrated. Because if we become dehydrated, it may mean that we can't run as fast, and we might not be able to think as sharply, and also might not be able to dribble the ball as well. So yeah, definitely need to make sure that we're hydrated.
So, like, why do we sweat? What is the reason for sweating?
Yeah, it's a great question. You probably know this yourself and anyone else who plays football, but when you start using your muscles, you create heat, and that's why we get really hot. But to make sure that we don't become too hot, our glands start making loads of sweat, so it tries to cool the body down. So it's like this cooling effect to make sure that we don't get overheated.
Yeah, so especially the warm weather is going to affect that as well.
Yeah,
When you're
but
in the summer and stuff.
today, hasn't it? So
Yeah.
has in Manchester, it has been here. So yeah, it's starting to get a lot hotter, which means that we'll sweat. Most people will sweat more when it's a hot temperature outside.
And to state the obvious, but the best way to keep hydrated is by drinking. And probably one of the best drinks to kind of drink when you're hydrated and you're doing sport is like an electrolyte drink, like a Gatorade sport drink. Correct?
Yeah. So drinking is definitely the best way to stay hydrated. And the thing with like sports drinks, like Gatorade, for example, it does have electrolytes in it. So it helps replenish the fluid that you're losing, the electrolytes that you're losing, but also, as we discussed last week, it's like a source of fuel, so it will keep like your energy stores high as well. And when we talk about electrolytes, it's like how salty the sweat is. I don't know if you've ever like
The sweat test.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I've done that as well. Sometimes when you're really dehydrated and you sweat a lot, you have like, you literally can see like white salt on people's forehead.
Yeah, so as like scientists, we sometimes do sweat tests on people where we take like a sample of people's sweat. Sounds really glamorous, it's really not. So we get the sweat, measure how salty. But you're totally right. If you don't have access to doing those tests, you can look at your clothing or like, as you say, on your head. And if you've got like the crusty, wet, like salty bits on there, you know that you've got quite a high salt content in your sweat.
But then how would you know like how much to drink and how much you're drinking, or how, yeah, like, are you drinking enough? What would be a good measure of that, away from just the salt in the drinks and the salt in your sweat?
So one thing we always tell people is to look at your urine color. So if
Yeah.
you ever go to the toilet, have a little look to see what your urine color is. If it's really dark orange, then you're likely dehydrated. urine to be like a pale yellow colour.
Sorry, I think it broke up a bit then.
It's like you're back, I think. And another thing that we say is that before you exercise, if you drink around like 5 to 10 millilitres per kilogram of your body weight, then that will mean that once you start exercising, you should be in a hydrated place.
So you can just, I guess, times your body weight by 10, which very simple maths this week. A little bit more simple than that. Add a 0 to the end of your body weight, and that's your 10. Add a 0 and half it, and that's your 5 millilitres.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
the maths is coming in handy. All those kids at school who say they don't want to do maths, it doesn't come in handy. Even if you're a football player, you're going to use maths.
Exactly. So a really good tip is like, if you know how much you're going to drink, so say it's like between 350 millilitres to 700, it's better to like sip on it rather than just like chugging it down, because if you just chug it, you just wee it straight back out.
Well, yeah, that's obviously we do, like, you do drugs testing in sport and in football, and you do a lot of urine tests, and they actually say if your urine's too clear that it can't be used, because, and it's if you've just chugged water and it just comes, it's obviously just coming out as water, so your body's not holding on to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, as you say, much better just to sip on it, and then your body will make sure that it keeps the water in.
And I think a good bit of advice I was always given, like, you have your sweat tests and you can do urine tests, you can do all sorts of stuff like that. But someone once said to me, well, if you're thirsty, you're probably dehydrated. Like, that's your body telling you need to drink.
Yeah, so that you're already at the point then when you're dehydrated. So you're trying to prevent even feeling thirsty, because then if you're feeling like that, you're already dehydrated. So you want to make sure that you don't feel that thirst.
Yeah, because how many people sit and go, oh, I'm so thirsty, but that, like, you're way past the point of where you should be by then. Yeah. I think that's like the most basic marker I've ever been told, and it really sticks in my head.
And so simple to know like what to do. And like, so a good bit of advice is to always have a drinks bottle like by the side of you, because I'm also lazy and I'll be like, oh, I'll get a drink in a minute, like I'll get one in a minute, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm really thirsty. So if you have a drinks bottle by the side of you, you'll just keep sipping on it throughout the day.
Yeah, I think that's something that we always get, especially in an England camp, because we're so busy. You'll often see the girls just carrying a big water drink around with them, or whatever drink it is, just because you're just constantly going everywhere, and it's best to just keep something with you, because you just never know when you get the chance to have another drink.
Exactly. And do you notice that we were talking about like different people sweating? Do you notice that you sweat a bit differently to some of your other teammates?
Yeah, I think it's noticeable when, like, we train in certain environments together. Say if you're in the gym and you're inside, some people are like literally dripping with sweat because the temperature of the gym like just makes their body sweat more, whereas that same temperature for somebody else, like, they're not even sweating. And I think it's like, we always talk about it, especially when we go hot countries, and some of the girls, the hair is soaking wet, and then somebody else's like hair looks completely dry, and their hair is just soaking wet off of sweat, not of anything else.
Yeah. And as you say, like before, like if you're going to play in a hot environment, you need to remember that your sweat rate might change. So how much you sweat might be more when you're in that hot environment.
Should we see if we can have a look at some questions? There's a good question, actually, someone's asked. Oh, wait. How much do you recommend drinking each day, which you've gone through? They say they drink 4 litres in work and office, but still get thirsty. Is that a little bit like if you just drink water and it just goes straight through you, kind of thing?
Yeah, maybe. And it's really hard to know how much you need to drink, and that's why I think looking at your urine colour is a really good marker. And it could be, again, like if that person's still feeling thirsty, that they're drinking it too quickly, as you said. So yeah, it's kind of being aware of how much you're drinking, sipping on it, and then also checking that urine colour.
So someone asked if it's in pounds or kilograms. It's kilograms.
Yeah.
I don't know pounds and all them measures in stones. I think anybody that works in sport in England now, you tend to use kilograms, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I wouldn't have any idea what pounds would be to know.
No, I don't know either.
So,
I should know.
oh,
Maybe
yeah, hope that helps.
lessons.
I've seen one other question that is kind of linked to what we speaking about is it good to drink a bottle of water with like a Gatorade drink, so like your electrolyte energy drink? So I would think that depends really, doesn't it, on how much you sweat?
Yeah, it really does depend on how much you're sweating and also how long you're exercising for, and how much fuel you need. So if you're going to do a really high intensity session or a match, you might need something that has, or you will need something that has a carbohydrate in it. So a sports drink like Gatorade is brilliant for that. If you're doing like a lower intensity session or maybe on a recovery day, you might just want to be sipping on any fluid just to make sure that you're hydrated.
I've seen someone say as well, is the white stuff on your shin pads, the salt, that's exactly what we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I forgot that it's like, especially if you get the shin pads and they're black at the back, like foam, it just holds all like the salt and the sweat that you do, yeah, when you're training or you're playing.
Yeah, especially if you don't like wash them in between, it just gets filled up of the salt.
Wash your shin pads.
Yeah.
But don't use the salt in the kitchen enough and just get rid of it.
If you don't learn anything today, wash your shin pads.
I think a lot of questions are around drinking around games, particularly pre-game, half-time, things like that.
Yeah. So the recommendation that we were talking about, the timesing by your body weight, so the 5 to 10 mils, if you try and do that before a game, and then during a game, the amount that you need is dependent on your sweat rate. And so it's really difficult to know your sweat rate. But what you can do is if you weigh yourself before and after a training session, how much weight you lose is just fluid. It's not anything else. You're just losing water. And that will tell you how much to drink per hour. So if you lose a kilogram over an hour, that means that your sweat rate is 1 litre per hour. And so you should be drinking kind of near to that, but it's quite difficult to calculate that. We can send some resources out, but then also to have enough fluid during a match, because I know that there's little availability to be able to grab a drink when you're playing. So that's when half time is a good chance to get some fluid on board.
I think the only other thing I think would be a good question is a lot of people asking about gels, which obviously links back to last week. And there's episodes last week where we speak about gels and you know the energy that you get from fueling through gels. But obviously there is a difference between actually getting the fuel from gels and getting the fuel and hydration from a drink, which I think is important to like know the difference.
Yeah, so there's not as much fluid in those gels. So you're getting the carbohydrate definitely, and you're going to get some electrolytes from that gel, but you're not going to get the fluids alongside it. So that's where you can mix and match your sports nutrition. So you can have a gel and then also sip on some water maybe. So you've got the fluids, the carbohydrate and the electrolytes.
Yeah, because I know like some people don't like drinking the Gatorade drinks. They potentially don't like the taste of something. A lot of people prefer to drink water. So then you can take the gel, which kind of gets that little bits out, and then just drink your water, because obviously water is not ideally the best thing when you're doing sports.
Yeah, 'cause it's not going to give you that fuel that we've talked about.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely I absolutely love sports drinks. I think because they're a little bit sweet, I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. But I know that there's people that I play with who'll rather just have a gel and drink water because they just prefer drinking water. So I guess sometimes it's down to personal preference. Yeah, exactly. And there's not always like, you must just do it this way. Like, you find what works for you, I suppose.
Yeah, and one of the biggest tips I can always give is to try it in training before you try it in match. So you'd never try something new when you're going to do like an important match or competition, because just in case it's something that you doesn't suit you very well.
Yeah, I think there's this last question I'm going to ask just because it's something that happens to me a lot, and it's about calf cramp and whether that's linked to dehydration.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Tricky one, isn't it?
It's a really tricky
Yeah.
one, because the science doesn't, if we don't actually know if it is linked to dehydration, and in some people it might be. So for some people that have cramp, we do say to have maybe some extra electrolytes, but at the moment we're not completely sure what causes cramp.
Yeah, I mean, I still play now when I get cramp in my calves and I'm really fit. I do loads of calf exercises. I have gels, I have drinks. I take extra electrolyte drinks with extra salts. But yeah, and then there's somebody else next to me who could do just as much as me, doesn't get cramp, or even someone who does a lot less gets cramp, and yeah.
Yeah, and scientists have been looking at that for years.
Yeah.
And still don't know the answer.
I think everybody always says that a sports drink will fix it. And I think obviously that's a good like default, isn't it?
Yeah.
That if in doubt, you can always do that. And there's always little different things that you can do to help. But yeah, I thought that was interesting when I found that out, because I just assumed it was because you dehydrated that you cramp. But yeah.
We just don't know.
Yeah, it is one of the reasons. It is potentially a reason, but we just don't know, which is surprising in this day and age.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think we've got through pretty much most of the questions there. So thanks so much for your time, Rebecca. We'll pick this up again next Monday when we are speaking about recovery. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. Just a reminder to follow the We Play Strong Instagram, YouTube channel. You can see the latest episodes where we speak a little bit more. There's a little bit more information about each thing that we're focusing on. You can see myself, Ella, Rebecca on hydration. Yeah, and then tune in again this same time next Monday for recovery.
Great. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks. See you later. Bye.